calls made within India through WhatsApp, Skype, Viber and other internet-based services should be regulated just like traditional phone calls are regulated. That's what a government report has said. However, a government report by the Department of Telecommunications on net neutrality. However, messaging and international calls through WhatsApp and Skype don't need regulation, according to the report. That's meant to help determine the government's policy on net neutrality. Now, telecom operators say that they are losing voice and text revenue to internet applications that allow users to communicate at much cheaper costs. For example, for a 1-minute phone call, a customer is charged around 50 paise, but a call made using the internet costs 4 paise, according to the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Now, net neutrality is a principle that says that internet service providers should treat all traffic on their networks equally and that they cannot block or slow down access to any website or content. Now, the new report which has been prepared says net neutrality must be protected and that the content and application providers cannot be permitted to act as gatekeepers. So it gets complicated, but the report says that it is entirely committed to net neutrality. On the other hand, it seems to vacillate on a couple of the key issues which people have been talking about, and we are going to be looking at that very, very closely. Joining me, Apar Gupta, he's an advocate and somebody who follows this very closely. Pranesh Prakash, the policy director for the Centre for Internet and Society. He joins me from Bangalore. Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Congress still with us, as also Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao. Pranesh Prakash, as far as, and correct me if I'm wrong, there are no countries in the world which actually mandate a price on making a WhatsApp call. Is there a danger that India might be the first or one of very few countries that actually does that?
No, I don't think that danger exists. I think it is caused by a slight misconception about what the report actually says. The report talks about licensing and regulation of WhatsApp and other such communication services. That isn't necessarily linked to price. So, for instance, putting in place some kind of regulation about do not disturb or spam, etc., would also be included within this. But let me state my belief
the report
on the record
says
that I believe
VoIP or voice calls over internet may be charged separately. Isn't that a challenge to the concept of net neutrality?
It does not state that. It says that the government should bring it within a licensing framework. I disagree with that, but it does not state that they should be charged separately.
Okay. What is your assessment, Apar, of this? Do you believe that net neutrality might be threatened as far as calls on WhatsApp, Viber and the like are concerned?
If you look at recommendations, the summary of recommendations, specifically recommendation number 9 and recommendation number 10, they most properly deal with voice over internet protocol calls. These are the kind of calls which are done through Skype, WhatsApp, Viber. Now, the first recommendation states that there is an opportunity for regulatory arbitrage. What this essentially means is that these calls and these services are not within a regulatory framework, and naturally with a regulatory framework there will be some cost imposed on these providers in addition to what is already existing.
Yes.
Now, it's a natural inference that this cost may be, and this is the reasonable inference which does arise, will be passed on to the user.
Yes.
It may be in terms of more gathering of their data and monetization of it, or maybe also be in the form of levy of direct charges. So, you know, the report does not state with certainty that there will be an imposition of a cost on such a call. However, the natural inference which may arise is that the possibility of this does exist and has been opened by recommendation number 9 and recommendation number 10.
Okay. Priyanka Chaturvedi, is that a concern that the Congress party shares, that there could actually be, this report says it is pro-net neutrality. If you go into it, there are some aspects which are not a net neutrality positive. Would you believe that as far as these calls are concerned on WhatsApp, Viber and the like, that this is a step backwards?
Absolutely. If you would see, and if you would see how things have progressed so far, You had Mr. Prasad saying that he's all for net neutrality. Then you had the TRAI questionnaire, which was quite in favor of telecom companies. Then moving forward, after 6 months, they've come up with this report, which is not the final word. We still wait for TRAI recommendations. Then we have the government taking a final call. But it's clearly moving in a direction where they talk about, being in favor of net neutrality, but their words are very vague. Now, whether it is with a 0 rating or it is with this voice over internet calls that they're talking about, how are they going to distinguish between voice calls as well as messaging OTTs? This is something that they, said that VoIPs for domestic calls would be could be chargeable, could be regulated, while international calls would not be. Same with messaging. Messaging for domestic and international will continue being unregulated. So when you're talking about this, you're setting a precedent for regularizing a few things, regulating the internet, which is the core idea goes against net neutrality. So this is what we've been maintaining all along, and this is where the government needs to come clean, DOT needs to come clean, as well as TRAI needs to come clean. Net neutrality is essential and is the need of the hour.
Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, I'm sure you'd like to come in on that, but I'd also like to ask you another question. As far as the issue of 0 rating is concerned, and this is how this entire net neutrality debate had really kicked off in India, there is also a lack of clarity, some would say. There is a sense that the panel hasn't really decided, or this report hasn't decided which way they're going with 0 rating. What is 0 rating? For the benefit of our viewers, 0 rating is the practice of internet service providers not charging end customers for data used by specific applications or internet services through the ISP's network in a limited or metered data plan. Has this particular report, Mr. GVL Narasimha Rao, done enough to clarify doubts on this issue?
I think that point has been very clearly pointed out, that gatekeepers, internet service providers cannot provide a preferential access to some service providers, some websites, and discriminate against others. It's the end user who will have equal access to all content on the internet. I think that point is very well articulated, very clearly spelled out. So that's the crux of net neutrality. So a lot of people who have been offering such services, I think once the government takes it, because this is a committee report, yes, and we'll have to wait for the DOT to take a final decision on this. The final decision clearly rests with the Ministry of Information Technology, and we have to wait. Until then, we can only debate the report.